Hey guys, welcome back to the Fanspo podcast, episode 9. I'm Mohit, filling in as host today for Emin Robinson.
I'm TK.
I'm GreenDray, your guest for today.
And I'm Purple and Gold.
Today we will be discussing some NBA Superlatives, so let's get right into it. First, which player this season is most likely to drop 70 points?
I'd say Luka. I think he's done it. I think before. Last year, and he shows when he's got to go and he's gonna continue to go at you. Some players, they just stay in their lane and they don't. Even when they're going hot, they don't aggressively try to push for high numbers. But I think this is a guy that will continue to go after you, and I think he can get to 70.
I have a star pick and I have a non-star pick. My star pick would be Embiid because he definitely has a point to prove coming out of a mid-ish Olympics, and my non-star pick would be Cam Thomas because he's such a chucker and there's literally no one else on that Nets team willing to score the ball.
Yeah, I think Cam Thomas is a good pick. I also think Steph might drop 70 because when he gets hot, no one can stop him. And the Warriors have no one else on that roster either. So he's going to have to do a lot of hard carrying.
Interesting. Cam Thomas is a surprising shout. He's definitely not as talented as the other players mentioned, but with how bad the Nets team is, I could see him having some big scoring nights.
I mean, Steph is kind of weird because his game high isn't, 62? I don't think he's crossed 65 yet. I mean, his help this year has gotten a lot worse compared to years past, but he's also older, and I feel like he's taking a bigger step back He took a bigger step back last season than most people expect, especially in terms of consistency.
Yeah, but when he's on, he's still the best shooter on the planet, and if he's hitting his shots, I could see him getting hot. I don't think he'll hit 70, but I could see him having multiple 50-point nights.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as a Warriors fan, it's hard to root against Steph.
Alright, next, which player is most likely to get traded this season?
It's probably Dorian Finney-Smith or Cam Johnson, one of the two Nets wings. So obviously they're in a rebuild now. So those are some of their higher valued veteran players that they can look to move and get some assets back. I think many teams will love to have a guy, Cam Johnson, who can space the floor and play some solid defense, and DFS provides kind of the same thing as well. And DFS has also been impactful on some good Mavericks teams in the past, so I think a lot of teams will be having that in mind.
I agree with TK. I think a lot of forwards are going to be moved, especially those on really bad teams that aren't looking to make the playoffs. I think Kyle Kuzma also is one to watch out for in terms of getting traded, because the Washington Wizards aren't really looking to make a splash. They're looking rather to build around that forward wing duo of Bilal and Sar, and I feel like Kuzma is just going to get moved for someone or some picks.
I mean, obviously the Bulls would want to move Levine, but I think the most likely to get moved is probably Jeremy Grant. Blazers have been shopping him for a long time now. He's been linked to the Lakers. I think he'll get moved. Maybe not for the 2 first that they're looking for, but I think he does get moved. Hopefully by the deadline.
Yeah, I also went with Cam Johnson. I think teams like the Nets, the Blazers, the Wizards, they're going to have players that a lot of teams are going to want, just high-end role players, and I think Cam Johnson, out of all of them, is the most likely to get moved. Next, which star is most likely to request a trade before the deadline?
I'd say Trae Young. I mean, there isn't really a whole lot, but I think Trae Young is probably the most likely out of all of them. Because I think the Hawks are kind of they started kind of in the taking a new direction by trading away DeJounte Murray. So I think they'll look to move Trae Young as well once they kind of underperform, because I think they think they want to contend, but I don't think they're quite good enough to do that, and they'll find out. And think Trae Young's going to eventually might want to go to another team.
Yeah, I agree with TK. There was a lot of buzz this offseason about Trey being moved to the Spurs. I think the return they got for DeJounte, they being the Hawks, was not great, as in they didn't get their own picks back from San Antonio. So I feel like he's the guy that gets moved in order for the Hawks to take that final step and fully set their sights on a rebuild for themselves.
I think Ingram's got to be the pick here. He didn't show up for the Pelicans training camp a couple days ago. He looks pretty unhappy there, and the Pelicans don't really want to extend him. So I think he gets traded for a center probably at the deadline, unless one of the young guys look good at the center spot. Yeah, so my pick would be Ingram.
Yeah, I went with Trae Young. I just think this Hawks team, they're not good enough to compete. They might not even make the playoffs, and they just got the #1 pick with Ricochet. And then they traded for Dyson Daniels as part of that DeJounte Murray trade. I think they could just full kickstart their rebuild, try to get their picks back from the Spurs potentially, and trade Trae there to pair up with Wemby. Next, which team is most likely to blow it up at the deadline?
I think, like I mentioned, it'd be the Hawks. I think they're eventually gonna continue blowing it up. Like, again, there's not a whole lot of teams that have to do a big fire sale or anything like that. Like, I think a lot of teams have already kind of blown it up, or or trying to contend. But I think the Hawks are probably the closest team in terms of blowing it up with the Trae Young or Bogdan Bogdanovic, Clint Capella. All those guys could be on the move soon.
I mean, I feel like the NBA right now is kind of really sorted into teams that have decided what they want to do. The only teams with real assets that are trying to tank, I feel like, is Utah with Laurie left. So I think they'll also move Laurie, and I feel like that's what cements the final piece that's gone from Utah as their rebuild.
Yeah, I think the Hawks is the most obvious pick here. They're not good enough to contend, but they still have a somewhat semi-contending roster with players that other teams would want. So I think they blow it up and get good returns, especially for trade.
I went with the Trailblazers. There's not much left to actually blow up, but they still have guys like Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton that could be moved, and then Robert Williams if he can stay healthy. So I think at least 2 of those guys end up getting traded before the deadline. Next,
Honestly, I feel like Aiden's not a guy that most teams aren't going to want at all. It's really hard to mark a destination for him because most teams already have they've envisioned what their center situation is going to look like for the next couple of years. Maybe New Orleans?
The Blazers, I think Simon's interesting because I think he's kind of the most productive young point guard of all 3 of them so far, but obviously the other 2 have more upside, so it'll be interesting to see if they want to move Simons or maybe keep him around and kind of see who can really fit or be that next starting guard for the future.
Yeah, I think the Magic should trade for Simons, even though they got KCP. They do need that real shooter because they had a lot of shooting struggles last season, and I think Simons could start. It would be one of KCP and Suggs coming off the bench.
I don't think Orlando would bench Suggs for Simons, but if they were to be able to trade for him, it would likely be KCP off the bench, which would be interesting. Okay, next, which player is most likely to make their first All-Star game this year?
Probably boring pick, but I'll pick Victor Wembanyama. I think he's already, one of the top 20 players in the entire league. Showing the second half that he was he kind of took a leap in the second half of the season. He was playing DPOI level defense, and his offense was really good as well. So I think he's going to only improve, and I think he'll get in. And then in terms of, I think for the East, I'd say Brandon Miller. I think he also kind of showed a lot in the second half too. I think with his 3-level scoring, I think he's going to only improve. I think he'll get into the All-Star eventually, very soon.
I feel like the East is pretty locked in, other than what TK said. I feel like for the West, Şengün also, other than Wemby, I feel like he's the other center that I feel like deserves consideration for an All-Star spot this year.
Yeah, I'd say Wemby is a pretty obvious pick for the West. For the East, I feel like Cade might get into an All-Star game. There's a lot of shooters in Detroit now, and his playmaking ability is gonna shine a lot more. So maybe Kate, maybe Cam Thomas if he can actually score over like 25 points. Yeah, those are my pick.
Yeah, I like the Cade shout and as well as Shangun. I do think, Wemby's the obvious pick. In the East, it's a lot more interesting because there's not really that many guys who haven't been All-Stars yet who could take that leap this year. Next, let's go most likely to get a suspension.
It's Draymond Green. I think he's I think had the most like suspensions and ejections, all that type of stuff the last for really the last decade or so. It's continued, so I think it's a pretty easy choice.
Yeah, there's really only one pick here. Other than that, you think Maniacs, you think Isaiah Stewart. Yeah, but Draymond Green is the really obvious answer here.
I mean, yeah, it's Draymond.
Yeah, Draymond's shown that he's gonna make stupid decisions and he's gonna end up getting suspended. I would not be surprised at all if he's the first one to get suspended within the first half of the season. Okay, next, which player is most likely to have a poster dunk?
I'd say Shaden Sharp. I think he showed like insane hops. I think when he was healthy, I think he's gonna do something crazy this year.
Shaden Sharp. I feel like another one could be Aaron Gordon for Denver. He's shown it before. He's almost won dunk contest. That was really close. But yeah, Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, Ja's gonna come back. I mean, he's gonna get a poster too. I think. I feel like he's probably the obvious pick.
I also went with Sharp. I forgot about Ja, to be honest. But yeah, he probably will end up getting one before the end of the season too. Which player is most likely to hit a game-winning buzzer beater?
It's probably SGA. I think he's been one of the more clutch players in the league since he's become like this all-star star player. So yeah, I think it'd be him.
Steph. Easy. His Warriors are going to be in a lot of close games this season, so it's really easy to see it. Really easy to envision Steph hitting a game winner at that point.
I mean, Warriors were in a lot of close games last season and Steph didn't hit a game with them either. Personally, I think Shea Luka is probably the easy pick. They're really clutch, and Mavericks also end up being in a lot of close games.
I went with, outside of Shea and Luka, I think the answer is Damian Lillard. I think he's going to have a huge bounce back year. Bucks aren't as good as they have been in previous years. They could end up in a lot of close game situations. I think they're going to end up relying on Dame to hit some big threes towards the end of those games. Next, who's the best NBA player 6'1" or under?
Well, I actually went out with this thinking it was like under 6'1". That's why I picked Fred VanVleet here because I think he's a lot better than some of the other guys. Like there's Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry. They're not nearly as good right now, and so I think VanVleet's probably the easy answer.
Yeah, VanVleet was. I was also thinking of 6'1" under 6'1", so not 6'1" exactly. I think Donovan Mitchell is listed as 6'1", so yeah, him.
Is Garland not 6 foot tall? I feel like Garland would be the easier answer here. I might be mistaken though. I thought he's 6 or 6'1". But yeah, Garland was my answer.
Garland is 6'1".
Yeah, Garland's 6'1". I think if it's under 6'1", then I would say Fred VanVleet. I think that's the obvious answer. If we're doing 6'1" or under, it's between Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell. I would lean Donovan Mitchell currently. Okay, next, who's the best player above 7 foot?
I'd say Joel Embiid. Like he's obviously been. I think he's a top 3 player in the entire NBA this year. So I think Jokic is like 6'11", so I think Embiid's the guy here.
Yeah, Jokic is 6'11". I think Giannis is also a smidge under 7 foot. So Embiid.
Yeah, it's Embiid.
Yeah, it's definitely Embiid. Okay, next, who's the best player to build around for the future?
Well, for the future, I think it's Victor Wembanyama. I think he's going to be the best player in the NBA. I think in 2 years, and he's going to continue to be up there for really the next decade or so. So yeah, I think it's him with his two-way impact.
Yeah, this is about as obvious as the most likely to get suspended one, Wembanyama. Other than him, I feel like Anthony Edwards is really easy to market. So other than the Wemby, I'll go and also a lot of hype has been building around him this season.
Yeah, I mean, they said it before me, and Wemby are the pretty obvious picks.
Yeah, I would go with Wembanyama. I do think Luka is a good shout, but his defensive limitations, I still lean Wemby. Okay, next, which 2024 rookie will be the best in 5 seasons?
Yeah, I think it's Reed Shepherd. I think he'll be the best player in this draft when it's all said and done. I think he's just very good all-around player. Like at everything, like he can shoot the basketball, he can play defense, he can pass, he can play off the ball, he can play on the ball, he can really do anything. High IQ basketball player. Like he's a complete package. I think he might even make a few all-star teams too. I think.
But the Rockets are really like congested right now. I don't know if he'll get that many minutes there.
No. I do feel like there's going to be a role specifically cut out for Reed Shepherd. I mean, Rafael Stone, the GM, has specifically stated that they have a role ready for Reed Shepherd to fill.
Well, yeah, I think I don't think right away he'll be like this great like player like right away, like obviously due to what you mentioned, like the role, but like I think from 5 years from now, I think he'll kind of like separate himself from, not like separate himself from the whole pack because they're very talented, but I think he will eventually get that opportunity based on how well he progresses, I think, in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, the question is 5 years. So, Jalen Green expiring, Fred VanVleet has a TO after this year. So, it's very easy to see this kind of role that Reed is going to have. And, like, the Rockets might aggregate, which hopefully makes him even better, especially if they trade for someone that can elevate his game.
I feel like if they trade for someone like Booker or KD, Shepherd might be involved in that trade, which is probably better for him because he'll have a bigger role in Phoenix. I went with Alex Sarr. He's gonna have a much bigger role in Washington than any other top 5 rookie, and they're gonna build around him for the foreseeable future. So he's got the platform to be great.
I also went with Reed Shepherd. I think Sarr's offensive inconsistencies will end up holding him back for these first couple of years. I do think eventually later in his career he could end up being better than Reed because I don't think anyone in this draft class ends up as an all-star. But I think Reed Shepherd for those first 5 years, he will prove himself and he will end up getting an increased role as these years go on, and he will end up as part of Houston's long-term core. Okay, next, who is the best international player in the league?
This is Nikola Jokic. I think he's the best player in the entire NBA, so I think this is a pretty obvious pick.
Yeah, I mean, all the best players in the NBA are international right now. Jokic has definitely proven that he is the best player in the NBA by now. So, yeah, him.
I actually think Luka's better than Jokic at this point, so my pick would be Luka, but Jokic is probably not a bad answer either.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jokic is the best player in the league. I'm interested to see, why do you think Luka is better than Jokic currently?
Well, he led his team to the finals and he beat the team that beat Jokic. He's also, I feel like, a better playmaker than Jokic, although it's pretty close. And he can score the ball better, so he does a lot of things at a very elite level. And they're both defensive liabilities.
I mean, Jokic just won a title a year ago, and Luka's lack of defense did end up hurting the Mavericks a lot in that final series against Boston. So I would still lean Jokic, and until we see them match up head-to-head in the playoffs, it's a very interesting debate.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. Like I said, Jokic isn't a bad pick either. But he didn't really, like, shine as, like, he didn't play as well as Luka did in this playoffs? And the answer is right now, not a year ago. So I guess Luka is probably the pick in my eyes.
Okay, next, who's the best head coach in the NBA?
Yeah, I think this is Eric Spoelstra. Like, he's continuously shown that he can get the best out of any sort of roster. Like, he's been a big reason why their flawed teams have been able to somehow make the finals like 2 times. Like, he's a big reason for that. Like, I think he deserves a lot more credit than he actually gets.
Yeah, I think Spo, other than Spo, Greg Popovich on San Antonio has done a great job developing Wemby, even though Wemby was destined to be great wherever he landed.
I think it's between Pop and Spo for sure. I think Pop didn't get as much coverage because the Spurs sucked last year, and they're not gonna be great this year either. But Pop is still really underrated, and he's been the best coach in the league for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's Spo. I mean, the way he's just been able to maximize the limited talent in Miami. I mean, you compare the Heat roster that made the finals to other teams. In the East that year, they were severely undermatched, but he got the best out of players like Caleb Martin. I think he's still the best player, or the best coach, sorry.
Yeah, and a lot of these role players like tend to play better in Miami than elsewhere. Like, we saw Kendrick Nunn. He made Kendrick Nunn look like a great player. He made Caleb Martin look good. Who else? Gabe Vincent was good. Now he's kind of, I don't know. I have to see what happens there, but yeah, he does really well to maximize what he has.
Okay, next, who is the best defender currently in the NBA?
I think this is actually Victor Wembanyama. Like, Rudy Gobert is very close, but I think Wemby is a bit more valuable in terms of, I think, his versatility. I think he can defend multiple positions a little bit better, but I wouldn't be mad about Gobert either, because he's also been a very good rim protector and ability to deter driving lanes, all that type of stuff. So I think it's between those two. I think Wembanyama has been more valuable, I think.
Yeah, in the interior, it's pretty clear to see who's the best. Like, Gobert, Wemby. On the perimeter, I feel like it's the two Celtics, Drew and White. Maybe Herb Jones if he takes a leap this year.
I might be biased, but I think AD is definitely up there. He's switchable, unlike Gobert, and he's also the same level of rim protector. It's probably Wemby because he has an 8-foot wingspan, but I think AD is definitely in the conversation.
I would go with Wemby. I think just the way he was this year, he was already second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, I think, as a rookie. And I think he's definitely going to take another leap defensively, and I think he's going to put a wide margin between him and the rest of the guys in a couple of years. Next, who's the best shooter in the NBA?
Yeah, this is obvious, Steph Curry.
Steph, what?
I mean, it's Steph.
Yeah, it's obviously Steph. Next, who's the best playmaker in the NBA?
Well, I think passing is Tyrese Halliburton. Like, the playmaking, that's a Jokic.
Playmaking, like by their name, making plays. Luka and Jokic are the big two internationals.
I mean, yeah, Tyrese, Jokic, Luka are probably the obvious picks. Outside of them, I think LeBron deserves a shout here. He averaged like 8 assists, and he's probably going to get even more of the ball after D'Lo gets traded. So I think outside of the tree, it's probably LeBron.
Yeah, I think it's between Jokic and Luka. I would still lean Jokic currently, but I do think it's close. Next, which player is most likely to shoot 50, 40, 90?
I think this is KD. I think he also did this a year ago, like the year before last year. So I think he can do it again if his free throw shooting can get back 90%, because he's been getting the 50 and 40 part. Last year's free throw went down. I think he'll get that back up again.
Yeah, I think Katie for the first 1 or 2 months of last season was shooting an absurd amount from three, like 52% or something. But realistically, it's probably some just sharpshooter that's not getting that many minutes. So yeah, play one of those guys.
I mean, I would say Steph, but his efficiency's gone down a little bit, and he's gonna have to chuck even more shots now that the Warriors don't have Clay. So it's probably KD.
Yeah, I mean, I would still go with Curry. I think he has the highest potential to shoot 50, 40, 90. It's close between him and KD, but I think KD is going to have I think they're both going to have somewhat regression, but I think Curry's efficiency numbers will still be closer. I don't think either of them end up getting it, though.
Steph shot 45% though, and he's gonna take even tougher shots.
That is true, but I just feel like last year was a bit of a down year. I don't know why. I feel like he's going to end up being more efficient this year.
I mean, Steph's the only guy to average 50, 49 while scoring more than 30 points per game. So I can see what Mo is trying to say here.
That was years ago though, and he's gonna have to take even tougher shots. I feel like if anything, his efficiency is gonna go down a little bit.
Yeah, and I think KD also has to play. He has to play with like other good creators, right? So I think it's gonna be more easier for him to get more efficient and not have as much bigger load. I think with Steph, it's like he has to like carry the offense even more. Like with all of Clay faults, he still was their second leading shot taker, right? So I think removing him puts even more pressure on Steph Curry to make plays and make shots, and I think it's gonna lead to a bit more not inefficient, but like it won't be like 50-40 type,
And KD was pretty close to 50-40 anyway, and now he has a playmaker and Tyus Jones alongside him. I think KD's a pretty obvious all-star pick here.
Okay, next, which player is most likely to average a triple-double throughout the season?
I'd say Luka. Like he's been flirting with this with the triple double for like the last I think it's his second year in the league, so I think he's probably the best shot I think at this.
I think Jokic, he was second only behind Sabonis just last year. He had 25, Sabonis had 26. And yeah, I just feel like he's just more likely to the season.
Yeah, Luka and Jokic are the only ones with the capabilities to do it now. I feel like maybe an outsider shout, but if Ben Simmons gets a comeback here, it's possible. He averages like 8 rebounds, 6 assists a game. If he gets his scoring up and starts playmaking a little more, it's possible.
I just don't think Simmons is going to get enough minutes to actually get there, but I would go with Jokic. He was close to in 23. He averaged 9.8 assists. So I think he has the closest chance. He just needs to get the assist numbers a bit more up.
Purple and gold, you see Ben Simmons to average a triple double in big 2024.
Bro, what if he averages a 10-10-10? It's possible.
The only triple double he's averaging is his order at Wendy's. I'm sorry.
Yo, Mo, kick this guy out of me, bro.
You could have picked anyone else. An outsider shout, and you picked Ben Simmons. It could have been Sabonis or something. It could have been Sabonis. It could have been Giannis. It could have been, I don't know, LeBron, Josh Hart, Scotty Barnes. And you chose Ben Simmons.
Oh shit, Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is actually a crazy shot. Nah, but Ben Simmons is up there.
Okay, next, which player is most likely to have a quadruple double?
I think it's Victor Wembanyama. I think he can get I think he's the best shot at getting 10 blocks or steals, like one of those two, of that category, that fourth category. I think he can get that, the most likely to get that. It just the blocks, obviously, and then he's a good passer too, I think, and obviously a great rebounder and scores. I think he can probably the best shot at that.
Seriously, what kind of Wemby Glazer made these questions? Because half of the answer to these have been Wembanyama. I think Wemby was really close. Not really close, but I think he was close a couple times last season, so it's obviously him.
I think Wemby and AD are the shouts here. AD could get a lot of steals, and he's also gonna score. He's probably a better passer than Wemby at this stage.
Yeah, I think Wemby can get the blocks. I'm not sure. The assists worry me more than the blocks, to be honest. But I don't think either of them end up getting it. But I would lean Wemby for who's more likely. Okay, next, which player is most likely to beat the single game 3-point record?
Might be a hot take, but I'm picking MPJ for this. I think he's like when he gets hot, he gets very hot. Like he can, there are times where he cannot miss at all. Like he can, I think he's one of those guys that when he gets it going, like he can get to like 10 plus threes, and I think 14. I don't think it will happen, but like I think he's got the best shot out of anyone else. I think.
One of the Kings guys, Keegan Murray was really close last year. Kevin Huerter also is a sniper. I can feel Mohit wanting to go Steph Curry here. I can feel it in his bones. So them three.
Yeah, I think saying Steph is a cop out over here. Other than Steph, I feel like Dante had a pretty good shooting year. Brunson maybe. Brunson's gonna have a green light, and he's gonna get a lot of spacing in New York, so he might break the record.
Yeah, I mean Steph is the obvious answer. I would say Dante as my second answer. I think he had 11 threes in one game last year, so he's gotten the closest. Besides Keegan, also had 12. I would say Dante as my second answer. Okay, next, which player is most likely to have a 30 rebound game?
I think either Wemby or Sabonis. I think Sabonis has been like the best rebounder in the NBA for the last 2 years, so I think I think he definitely should be in consideration considering that. Also, Wemby's like 7 for 5. I think he's gonna get a lot of rebounds too. So
Wemby is massive. If he had some size, if he had some width this game, it's obviously going to be him. Otherwise, yeah, AD, Sabonis, those two. I can feel purple and gold wanting to go AD here. He's been hyping him out all episode.
I mean, I think AD is probably the pick here. He's a great rebounder, and the Lakers don't really have many rebounders outside of him. I think Jokic also could get 30. He's like a sneaky rebounder. You don't realize he has 20 rebounds until you see the box score at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame Invincible for going with AD here. He had 25 in one game last year, and Nurkic was the only player who actually got 30 last year, which is kind of surprising. If he can get consistent minutes again, which I think he will, I wouldn't be surprised if he had like 20 plus rebound games. Okay, next, which player is most likely to beat Scott Skiles' single game assist record?
I think this is Tyrese Halliburton. Like, I don't think it'd be like a Luka or Jokic because they're so good as scorers. I think they'll do that. I don't think getting 30 assists might be possible for those guys. But I think Halliburton, like I think he likes to pass a little bit more willing passer. I think he's gonna, rather than scoring, so I think he's gonna challenge for 30 assists more likely than those two.
I don't feel like there's really any other answer. I feel like I feel like Luka is gonna have to take another step up offensively in terms of scoring output. So, yeah, Halliburton.
I mean, you guys are sleeping on Trey. I feel like Trey and Halliburton are the only possible ones. But this record also seems really unbreakable to me. So my answer would be no one. But if it had to be anyone, it'd be either Halliburton or Trey.
Yeah, I think it's also Halliburton. For Trey, I feel like he's gonna have to take a step up scoring wise because now with DeJounte out, he's gonna have a larger offensive role. So I'm not sure if he can quite rack up those assists.
No, I think Trey still got shooters around him. And I mean, the way Scott Skiles got his assist record was whoever he passed to made every shot. It's possible with Bogdanovic and Ricochet around him. I wouldn't count him out.
Okay, next, which player is most likely to have a game with double-digit steals?
I think it's Alex Caruso. I think playing with a good defensive team around him is going to help him in that regard as well. So I think he's got the best chance.
I feel like to get 10 steals is really hard. I feel like you have to play a lot of minutes to get 10 steals. I feel like it's going to be Shea, because I mean he's a star player in OKC and he had 7 last year, which was I think tied with 3 other players for highest. I think 3 others were AD, Herb, and someone this guy. Oh, Trey Man.
Yeah, I think AD or Wemby. But if it has to go perimeter players, I'll go like Herb Jones or Shea.
Yeah, I went with Herb Jones. I think he has the best chance of being like that. I think he's going to take a step up perimeter wise and be one of the best, if not the best perimeter defender in the entire league this year.
Yeah, I think Herb is more so like a positional defender more than getting steals and stuff. But yeah, but I do see that though.
I mean Herb had 5 and 6 at some point last season, so I can definitely see him getting double digits, but it's really hard.
Okay, next, which player is most likely to get double-digit blocks this season?
I think it's Victor Wembanyama pretty easily.
Yeah, I think Wemby had 10 last season, so I feel like you can replicate that again. Other than him, Chet maybe, but Wemby's so clearly downset here.
Yeah, Wemby, Chet, AD. It's those guys. Probably Gobert as well.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is Victor Wembanyama. He probably will end up having one game with 10 blocks at least. Okay, next, which player is most likely to have double-digit turnovers?
I think this is James Harden. I think there'll be like a number of games where Kawhi won't be on the court, which means he has to be the guy that has to like set everything up, and I just don't think he's good enough anymore to be doing that. Like I think he'll have a game where that will actually happen.
Scoot Henderson. Our producer is probably gonna edit this out, but it is going to be Scoot Henderson.
I think it's probably Trey. He averages an absurd amount of assists, but he also averages an absurd amount of turnovers. And it could just be one of those offers.
Yeah, I also went with Trey, just with their offensive limitations of the Hawks. I think if he has an off night, he could easily end up racking up those turnovers. Okay, next, which player is most likely to end up breaking Scoot Henderson's plus-minus record?
For this one, I think it's like you have to pick like a team that's really bad, like has like the best chance of getting blown out like by 50, which I think is the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that would be like Dennis Schroeder. I think would be the guy. Like he's the starting point guard. I think so. He's probably gonna be on the court a lot, enough to like have that chance for that record to be broken.
How about Scoot Henderson again? I know he had minus 58 last time. He's gonna do it again. He's gonna go minus 59 or minus 60 or something.
I think it's probably gonna be one of the Nets guys. Schroeder's actually an excellent pick. Maybe Claxton. Defensive guys, I don't know. They don't really get plus minus like that.
I went with Cam Thomas. I think if he has an off night in terms of shooting, the Nets could end up really bad for the Nets, as he's one of their only big offensive outlets. So if he has an off night, the Nets are going to end up losing by a lot, and he could end up with a really low plus minus. Okay, next, which player is most likely to win the three-point contest?
I think this will be a Steph Curry. I think the All-Star game's in Golden State this year, so I think he's going to be there. He hasn't been in the last few three-point contests, but I think he'll be there this time. And I think he's going to be the easy winner. I think when he's there.
Yeah, Steph. Maybe even Healed, because I mean he's in Golden State now. Yeah, Healed Steph.
I thought Steph said he doesn't want to play in 3-point contests anymore. If not Steph, I think Clay winning it in Golden State would be pretty fun to see.
I think it's Trey or Damian Lillard. I think one of those two will end up winning it. If Steph does participate, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins, but I'm not sure if he will, and I would lean Trey out of the people who are likely to participate. Next, which player is most likely to win the dunk contest?
I think it's Shaden Sharp.
Yeah, I think you said Shaden Sharp for poster dunk as well. Maybe DJJ other than him. Aaron Gordon, who I said for poster dunk. Mac McClung has participated last year and won last year, so he's probably a betting favorite to go into Golden State and win this year's one.
Yeah, I think McClung's a cop-out answer. I think Ant might try going for the dunk contest, and he's definitely got the hops to win it.
I don't think Ant would end up doing it. I'm gonna go with Orlando Magic legend Mac McClung. I think he'll end up repeating.
Wait, I have another one, Zion Williamson. Because if you remember last year, he said he's doing the dunk contest. If he gets into the All-Star thing.
Okay, finally, which player is most likely to go pro in a different sport?
I'd say Anthony Edwards for like football. I think did he play football in college? I think he did. I don't know, but I think he's kind of got the build to like either do it. I don't know much about football, but I think you can do it. I think.
Maybe this is a hard one actually. This isn't something that you talk about very often. Maybe LeBron as a tight end, I guess. But I feel like that's as purple and gold was saying, a really cop out answer.
Isn't James Johnson a UFC fighter or something? Maybe he becomes a UFC fighter. I don't know. Probably him. Pretty odd question.
I went with Pat Connaughton. He actually played baseball in college, and he was very good in college. I think he could end up making at least the minor leagues if he wanted to play baseball. I think at this point, LeBron is getting older. I'm not sure how much he could physically last in the NFL as pushing 40 as a tight end. He's going to take hits.
Yeah, I didn't get a LeBron answer either.
All right, thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you to GreenDray and Invincible, also known as Purple and Gold, for tuning into this episode, or for being guests on this episode. And MN Robinson will hopefully be back for our next episode. He's out for personal reasons today, so we'll look forward to that.